These developers own Roblox games with billions of visits, however, they've all died out and became forgotten. And today, we're going to be exploring 5 games that have fully died. Giant Survival has over 255 million visits, but only averages around 50 players a day. It used to average thousands, but has died out. The game was launched in 2019 by Big Games, however, it's actually a part 2 and a recreation of an older game made by Preston, the owner of Big Games, and that launched way earlier in 2014. The first game was successful, gaining over 50 million visits, so a few years later, they recreated it essentially being a part 2, and it also found success. So how did this series of successful games die out so bad? To understand what happened, I joined in hoping to see who was still playing and why. The game is pretty simple. One player is selected as a giant and the other players have to try and defeat them. While playing, you also earn money which you can use to upgrade your weapons and such.
How long have you been playing this game?
I'd say around 4 months.
Why do you think it died?
There's not much to do and no updates.
So to the players, the answer seems pretty clear. The game was hyped, but it just never received much updates. Also, if you look at the gameplay, it's typically the same thing over and over again. So with no changes to the game, people seem to have gotten bored and moved on. Also, apparently, there seems to be no plans to update the game in the future, so it'll probably continue dying out.
Are you sad to see it die out?
Yeah, I enjoyed playing it, but I knew it was gonna die without updates.
Do you wish it was still updated or have you moved on?
I've moved on. Yeah, the game hasn't really sparked my interest.
So as you can see, players are sad to see the game die out, but they kinda expected it to happen. Since the game isn't being worked on anymore, people get bored and leave. Even people who love the game and have been playing for a while realize this and are starting to lose interest. Let's investigate deeper to see why the developers let this game die out. Preston, the original creator of this game, joined Roblox all the way back in 2011. Right away, he started creating games and was going to make a ton. Some did fine, some did bad, and overall, he wasn't a massive developer. So for the first 3 years in game after game, he didn't really have much to show for it. But 2014 would change everything, because that's when he would launch the original Giant Survival, which was an instant hit and it would go on to gain over 50 million visits. This was one of his first big breakthroughs, after years of trying, so he knew he had to make a part 2. 2 years later, in 2016, he published Giant Survival 2, a more polished version with new features. The game did well, getting over 11 million visits, but it struggled to gain the same success as the first one, and that marked the end of the Giant Survival series. Until out of nowhere in 2019 where it was recreated, and that's the version most people know today. However, Preston by this point in 2019 built an empire with his game studio Big Games, and during this period they were remastering and launching a ton of games, one of which being another Pet Simulator, which if you somewhat aren't aware of, is one of the biggest game series in all of Roblox, with the current one having almost 2 billion visits, and the one before that having over 8.8 billion visits. Big Games also has a ton of other active and popular games, so what it seemed like happened was that this project wasn't taken as seriously as the others, and since the others became way more popular, they decided to focus more time on that instead of reviving this game and keeping it going, which is why Giant Survival died out, and now even passionate players are letting the game go, even if they're sad about it since you know they'll probably never get an update ever again. If you thought this story was crazy though, we're only getting crazier as the video goes on. Guesty was launched in 2020 and has amassed almost 100 million visits, but it only averages around 100 players nowadays, which isn't bad, but it used to average thousands. Guesty has similar gameplay to Piggy, where a player is a killer and the other players try to escape. And when it launched, this style of game was super hyped, so it exploded on launch, but now, it has lost its audience and is dying out. Unlike some games that die out to just being old or the devs abandoning it, Guesty is still receiving updates. So to see why this game has died out, I joined in to question the players still left playing. Most people ignored me since they were busy playing the game, however, there was actually a trading server where a player was open to an interview.
How long have you been playing this game?
Maybe 1 year, or more.
Why do you think it died out?
Cause they didn't make events, or update the map.
Are you sad to see it die out?
Yeah, I put a lot of money and I played this for years and now it's dead.
So what it seems like happened is that, even though the game is still being updated, the updates don't add enough so players still lose interest. And like they mentioned, it seems like core parts of the game like maps don't get changed much. So even if there are new elements, most people have lost interest and there's nothing crazy enough to get them to start playing again. Another interesting thing this player mentioned is the money aspect. It seems like most players left either invested too much time, money, or both to just stop playing. So most casual players have lost interest and moved on, but more dedicated players stayed, even if they're not happy with the state of the game. Other players I've talked to share these same ideas.
How long have you been playing the game?
Like 5 somewhat years.
Wow, why do you think it died?
The updates, I think.
Once again, a player who's been playing for years is saying that the updates cause the game to die. They then further going to explain why, and it gives us a good understanding of why this game is in a rough state.
Do you think it'll get popular again?
Maybe, if they release Chapter 10. It's been 2 years.
The game still updates though. Are they just not good?
Nope.
So it seems like what happened is, this game does update, however, the updates people actually want, like a new chapters, don't really get added. And after waiting for years, most people just left and lost interest, which led to this game dying. And almost everyone I spoke to said they'd been playing for a while, so it's clear most people left are just people who spent too long on the game to let it go. There's not many new players really joining anymore. It's pretty sad when you think about it. A lot of these players just keep waiting year after year, hoping this game they love finally drops something exciting, and so far it seems like it's yet to happen. Let's dig deeper to see if we can get a true answer. This game was created by Nahid, who joined Roblox back in 2011. He's been a part of a ton of successful projects and overall still developed for a lot of games. One of their personal most successful games though is Guesty, and as mentioned it's still being worked on and updated, but every year it just keeps losing more and more players. The game was just updated recently, but as we can see, all they really added was a new crate and skin. Nothing major that actually changes the gameplay, and the main thing people want being a new chapter, just is coming soon with no real release date. It seems like the players were right. The game is consistent but not releasing major updates consistently, and in their peak they failed to capture the attention of players, so the majority of people got bored and left, and over time now with still not much major updates, players just keep leaving, and the only ones left now are players who've been playing and waiting for years for something new. Overall too, like I mentioned, the dev is part of projects all around Roblox, so they're probably constantly busy with other projects, which is why this game could have been ignored a bit. A sad ending, but our next is even sadder. Because we're talking about Wild Revolvers, a game which got over 100 million visits but only averages a few players every day, a lot of times even having 0 active players. The game launched back in 2017 and exploded on launch, but every year the game seemed to be worked on less and less, causing the player count to get lower and lower. After a few years, the game reached a point where it was unplayable. Then they came back, fixed it, and made it paid, and then made it free again. So it's had a super weird history, and throughout all this, most players lost interest and moved on. And now we're in another weird stage of the game where it's free and works fine, but isn't being updated, so the community is gone once again. Let's join in and find out the true reason for this game dying. Right away I noticed a major issue. You need several players to start, and since this game's so dead, even if I wanted to play, I couldn't. So even if players decided to play this game, there's not enough players to even start a match. Another reason why it probably has 0 active players a lot of the time. Eventually after waiting a while, some players joined in. The game is pretty simple. There's 2 teams and you each battle out with your revolvers. The game also has several different game modes, skins, and more.
How come you guys still play this game after it died?
You will respawn.
So this player was a bit confused, but I explained it further and this is what he said.
I don't know. I like it.
How long have you been playing?
Since day before yesterday.
This is kinda weird. Typically the only people left playing is people who've been playing for a while. This isn't even the first person to say this either. A lot of people I spoke to said they only played for a few days.
How did you discover this game if it's so dead?
Creecroft.
So a lot of new players are starting to play because of YouTubers, but since it's not being updated, they probably lose interest after a bit, and by this point, all the older players abandoned the game already, since it's been in a rough state for a while. Let's investigate deeper to find out what happened. The game was created by Novely Studios, owned by No Alias, the founder who joined Roblox all the way back in 2008. Right away they had a hit game back in 2008 called Sword Champions, and it's probably motivated his development journey going forward. This developer is insane, and once you look at his background, it becomes pretty clear why this game has died out, and was basically abandoned. If you look at Novely Studios, they created and are part of so much major games totaling over 1.5 billion visits. Their biggest game being Untitled Boxing Game, which is over 770 million visits, and is still very popular. So as you can see, they launched a ton of projects, and obviously they tend to focus on ones that are more popular and more active, so it's not really worth for them to try reviving this game. However, they are actually working on a sequel to this game, so it seems like they accepted the first game has came and went, so they're trying to do the same style with a new game to see if it still does well, and only time will tell if it does. But once again, it seems to be a case of the developer abandoning a project and letting it die out to focus on their more popular and successful games. A pretty wild ending, but we're getting crazier as the video goes on. Because we're talking about Retail Tycoon, a game which has over 217 million visits but only averages around 50 players a day. It used to get thousands but has slowly died out every year. The game is now over 10 years old since it launched back in 2015, and the developer Hage125 has been on the platform for a while, joining back in 2008. This game exploded on launch and quickly gained an audience. After a year or so it was already on over 3 million visits, but this was just a start. And from this point on, it blew up and went viral. Just 1 year after that, sitting on over 78 million visits. And it would then go on to get over 200 million visits over time. So how did a game this viral die out? Well, let's see what the players have to say. The game is literally probably what you think it is. It's a retail tycoon. You run your retail store and get money to expand and upgrade. The goal is just to get bigger and better over time.
Have you been playing for a while?
Off and on, yeah. Why you ask?
Why did this game die?
It's old, not trendy anymore. Other than that, I'm not sure. Games just die out over time. But it's kept a pretty decent following over the years.
This player has a good point. Unlike some games, it's not completely dead, and you can still find people playing, despite it being almost 10 years old now.
Does it still get updated?
Nah, not really. It's old, dev moved on.
It seems like the game also hasn't received much major updates, which could have made people lose interest. In Tycoon games, once you get far enough, you reach a point where there's not much to do anymore, and without many updates, people move on. These factors definitely contributed to this game dying, but if we dig deeper, there seems to be another major reason. As mentioned, the game exploded in the first few years, and continued its success for a while. This was the developer's first big breakthrough after years, and game after game, but eventually he had a tough decision to make. Around 2020 is when the game started to die. Every day it would just get less and less players. It was clear people were losing interest. By this point, the developer had been on the platform for over 12 years, and the game he spent 5 years on was dying in front of his eyes. But he wasn't quite ready to give up. He knew Retail Tycoon had potential, but it's old, and as time went on, it didn't stand a chance against modern Tycoon games. So he decided to remake it and add a ton to their game, the new game being Retail Tycoon 2. This was it. After years, if this game failed, the developer could have lost everything. But luckily, for him, it all worked out. This game also exploded since people already loved the concept. All the new elements made people enjoy this game even more. It currently has almost 280 million visits and is doing very well. And it seems to be the developer's main focus now. So what it seems like happened was the first game died out due to it being old and people getting bored. And instead of trying to revive it, the developer remade everything and found success again. A pretty good ending, but the same can be said for our next game. Because we're talking about our biggest game yet, being Zombie Rush, which is over 694 million visits, but it only averages around 100 players a day, which isn't bad, but it used to get thousands. Now it's just slowly losing players every year. Let's play and investigate the truth. Zombie Rush is your typical zombie game. You try to survive as long as you can, and it gets harder each round. You can also work on upgrades or even play as a zombie if you want.
Why do you guys think this game died?
No new content.
It doesn't get big updates.
Nope.
So once again, it seems like a game where the developers aren't adding enough new content to keep the players engaged.
Are you sad it died?
Yep.
How long were you playing?
Years.
It seems like a lot of the players left are people who've already been playing for years and are just coming back because they're bored.
Did you expect it to die?
Now.
How come you still play?
Bored.
That's kinda sad you witnessed the game die.
Definitely.
It is pretty sad. All these players have been playing for years, saw the game die, but still play since they've been already playing for years. As for why it died out, this player explained it perfectly. It doesn't really get much major updates, and when they do update, it seems to be small stuff. As for the owner, Beacon, they've been on the platform for over 10 years, and this is the biggest game they own. It does seem like they are trying new stuff though, so potentially they're getting bored of Zombie Rush. Another problem could also be timing. It probably takes the developers a long time to make major updates, so they're probably in a position where they can't update it as much as they hope to, which sadly left this game slowly dying out. Overall, a lot of Roblox games die out. In life, that's just how it goes. Everything must come to an end one day. Even if it is sad and the players are sad, it died out. Nothing lasts forever. And constantly on Roblox, games die and grow. That's just how it works. Even if it is sad, at some point we all have to accept it and let it go. Please subscribe if you enjoyed, and if you want to watch me explore abandoned games, check it out here and I'll see you in the next one.